talk about how this show is about.
Oh, no, I have to recap it, right?
Yeah, you do everything, and then
Okay,
do the introduction of Patrick.
So what are we talking about? We talked about Patrick doing the thing. All right, I think I'm ready.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean-American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean, American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Welcome, everyone, to the Janchi Show. This is episode 2. We are so excited to be doing this. Thank you for giving us a listen. This is your host, KJ.
This is Nathan.
And this is Patrick. Hey, Nathan, what does Janchi mean in Korean?
Janchi. Well, Janchi is about celebrating our Korean adoption heritage and a little bit about our journeys and our stories, finding maybe some other people with similar stories.
Nathan, what does Nathan mean in Korean?
Nathan is not a Korean word.
So today, since this is episode 2, we are continuing in our series of introducing ourselves. And so we sat down with Patrick Armstrong. We're very grateful for him being here, making the time to record his own podcast. And we talk about lots of things. Patrick tells us a little bit about growing up in the Midwest. He talks about his rap career that he later decided he was too good for and decided to go do a new thing. He got involved with a nonprofit relief effort down in Houston, Texas after Hurricane Harvey, and was so inspired that he decided to start a nonprofit of his own. And then we talk about kind of him and his now fiancé, spoiler alert, and their relationship and just what it's meant for Patrick to learn about being a Korean American, to learn about being adopted, starting his journey a little bit later in life than maybe some of us, and where he's at now and where he's hoping to go from here. So we hope that you're excited. On with the show.
Perfect. So we're jumping right in, right? So
Yeah, patty cakes.
Okay.
The baker's man. That's me.
So here we are. We are on episode 2 interviewing Patrick. Patrick, welcome to your show.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Just like
Dude,
every
we're
episode.
excited to have you.
This is great. We're doing so much already this first couple of weeks here. I'm excited. But I know you were on Dear Asian American already with Jerry, so there's a lot of information that you gave him. But for our viewers specifically and listeners, we should probably start with learning a little bit about yourself. So a little bit about your history, where you were raised, family, and just the basic details.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born in Seoul in March 1990. Adopted in June 1990 and ended up with my family in Rensselaer, Indiana. It's a really small town about halfway between Chicago and Indianapolis on I-65. My parents, 2 years later, adopted another Korean girl from Busan, non-biological sister. And overall, we had a pretty good life in Indiana. It was very predominantly white in the town that we grew up in. Not a lot of diversity. So I think growing up, that took a little bit of getting used to, a lot of getting used to, I would say. And it took a lot of finding ourselves, I think, which we were able to do. We had a really good relationship with our family. Our family was able to provide us with a lot of things, a really solid foundation. Just a really good base to grow from and grow out of. And when I graduated from high school, I went to Ball State for a semester. Then I went to Purdue, studied creative writing, ended up dropping out. Did some music stuff, which I'm sure that we might get to. And then just worked a lot of different jobs and a lot of different places. Lived in San Diego for a year. Lived the majority of my adult life, I'd say, in Indianapolis, but lived in West Lafayette for a while as well after I was at Purdue. And then ended up in Chicago for a time. Went to Houston for a time and did some volunteer work after Hurricane Harvey. And then when I was up in Chicago, actually started a nonprofit with my sister and a couple other friends who had good skills to utilize there. And now I'm back in Indianapolis again, doing some new stuff. So a little bit of running around doing a lot of things and a lot of being in Indiana doing other things.
And your parents are still at the same house that you were raised in?
No, actually. So I owned a house in West Lafayette, and my parents, my mom specifically, just never really settled into country life. We lived just on the outskirts of my small hometown, and she is
Yes.
not a big fan of mice or rats, and we had those there. So she wanted to get out of there, and I was getting ready to leave to go to Indianapolis, and it just worked out. So they just moved into the house that I owned, and it was just a real smooth transition. So they're in West Lafayette now.
Okay, so that's pretty close then. What's the history and heritage behind your parents?
Yeah, so they are both white. My mom's side of the family is really like Polish and Irish, Germanic, I believe. My dad's side, I am not 100% sure. I think it's roughly fairly the same. Some of those Germanic countries, but that's a great question. I should ask him sometime.
Well, I'm just curious. One thing I wonder about a lot of adoptees in general. I wonder how much history and family tree background they know about their adopted family, because it was something that really interested me when I was being raised in Oklahoma and wondering where my parents came from, where their parents came from. And I went back as far as I could. I made a tree. I went even as far back to find like one of the my family came from a mortuary business, and so I found the mortuary that was bought out and contacted them and things like
Oh,
that. So
nice.
just little things I would, I don't know, it's the internet, lots of time to do some research, and I'm wondering of how many other adoptees have done things like that. I'm really curious to hear. But
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because as I've been on this journey of self discovery for my own heritage and that Korean part of my identity, I've told myself too that I'm like, I want to learn as much as I can about my adopted family's history too. Because I've been thinking about what am I going to pass down to my eventual kids? Like, am I just going to have one side of the story or the other? Like, what am I going to do and how am I going to approach that? And I'm like, well, I should probably learn as much as I can. So I've actually been doing that now with my family, with my grandma on my mom's side. It's my last remaining grandparent of my adopted parents. And, we've been having some really great conversations. So it's been a fun journey to be on for that.
that's cool. I even found one of my third cousins on Facebook, and of course, I contacted them and said, "Hey, I think I'm a third cousin of yours," and they're probably looking at me like, "But you're Asian."
Did they
So,
respond?
they did. Because I
Did they
had
respond
to
with, "But you're Asian"?
yeah, but in the
How can this
original
be?
the original email, I had to clarify, or the message, I had to clarify. By the way, I'm adopted into the family, so just so they didn't freak out, they go, "Why is this guy like contacting me? Is he like identity theft? What is he gonna do?
I feel like
Steal
you have
my
a
info?"
pretty. Oh, I guess you're cousins though, so you wouldn't necessarily share a last name, even. Yeah,
Well, we
that would be
did. So that
weird.
was the one thing that I was easier
Oh,
to
that would be really
find him. Is
helpful.
that his last name was the same, but he lived in Pennsylvania, and so yeah, it was a little bit of a stretch. Again, he's a third cousin, so he's my grandparents' siblings' great grandchild. So it took a while to convince, but in the end, we connected. So, um, and you said your sister is just a few years younger than you. You said she also looked into a little bit of her journey of Korean adoption as well.
Yeah, she's done the DNA test. She's done 23andMe and Ancestry. It was actually located two cousins, I believe. One who they had like a minimal correspondence, I would say, via email, but lived in Chicago, so we know that they're fairly close. But overall, in terms of just embracing Korean identity and heritage, she was a little bit more into that than I was, especially growing up. She's actually been to Korea too, not on a journey per se, but on her honeymoon. Her and her husband went to Japan and then to South Korea as well. And then she's just always been I'd say, slightly more connected to the
Hmm.
culture overall than I have been. But it's been cool to follow along with her doing that. Like right now, she's got a Korean cookbook and she's learning how to cook. So I'm waiting for her to be done with that so I can learn how to cook. Maybe.
I thought you were just like, I'm over this. Is it in English or is it in Korean?
I think it's in English. I don't think she can speak Korean. She might be able to, though. I wouldn't put it past her. She's very, very studious and smart.
Speaking of food, I mean, you're in Indianapolis, so what is the Korean food like in Indianapolis?
And
is that even of interest for you?
So I'd say I'm just now broaching that. Growing up super American, I was like, had you talked about you've grown up on steak and stuff like that. That's what I did. You add corn in the mix, and it's pretty much the exact same thing that I'm eating.
Lots of potatoes.
Yeah, I would. For a long time, it was just you'd lump all the different Asian foods into Asian food. You just call it that. And I like it, but I've never really differentiated it. And now as I've been on this journey for the past 2 months, I'm like, I really need to start going to these places, or at least ordering from them. So I've got a list now of places that I'm going to try that are really close geographically to where I live. So it'd be easy for me to go there. I want to go there. But I've been going to the Asian markets and the grocery stores that they have around here. It's a lot. There's like 20 within like a 10-mile radius of me. So it's been cool to go and find them because they're always tucked in just like a little strip mall or just kind of away. Like if you're just driving by, you wouldn't catch them in your peripheral. But
and sometimes you don't even know that they're an Asian market sometimes, unless you see some Korean writing or Japanese or something on the outside. I've seen a few that I was like, I don't know what that is. And then I get closer and I go, oh, okay. That's a
Korean and they always
market.
have a ton of stuff in the windows, hanging up in the windows. So it's like you can't even necessarily see in. So unless it's big letters across the top or anything like that, sometimes I just miss it. Sometimes I'm not very observant.
Well, you'll have to try. I looked up a couple of your restaurants in the area, like Cafe Korea, Bando's, and Mama's Korean Restaurant. And it seemed to be 3 authentic-looking Korean restaurants. So
yeah, Bando's is one that's on my list. So
okay, you have to try that. They look pretty good. They're all rated really highly, 4.5, like 4.5, 4.7 out of 5 stars. So they're doing something right out there. So
yeah, I mean. It's funny you say that in my hometown because we talked about last time how your small hometown of 30,000 was a little bit bigger than my small hometown of 5,000. We did have, I can't remember specifically when, I think it was when I was in middle school, we had an Asian family, the Chinese family, move into our town, and I never really befriended them, but they started a Chinese restaurant there, and it was extremely popular. I'm pretty sure it's still there, being very popular.
Oh, you messed up not being friends with them.
I know, right? I was trying to fit in with the other white folks that were, and some are still my friends. So had to push it to the side, I think, for a little bit, and regrets.
Yeah. So then you say you also moved around. So you moved to San Diego for some rapping career, which we talked a little bit. You talked about it in your Dear Asian American podcast. One of the things I had a question, was that a culture shock when you moved to San Diego from Indianapolis?
It wasn't, I wouldn't say culture shock. It was more just, I felt good there because they call it like a transplant city, I guess. When I was out there, and then it's like a lot of people who aren't from San Diego necessarily, but live in California, want to come live in California. And I'd say that was one of the first times really that I had been outside of my own comfort zone where I felt like I fit in with the group of people that I had never met before. So it was good in that way. It was eye-opening, I guess, in that way, just to feel an acceptance from a group of strangers, especially outside of Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Were those strangers Asian as well?
A couple of them were. So I frequented a small dive bar where somebody who was a friend of one of my friends from back in Indiana, she actually was a bartender there. And there were a couple of other Asians that frequented there. So was able to hang out with them and share some stories and laugh and drinks, obviously.
So I'm curious. So I know, Nathan, you were drawn to country music at an early age, just probably because that's what was around. And I mean, like, I grew up in Texas, so I don't really have a ton of room to talk. There's also a ton of country music. I'm very familiar with like 2005 Toby Keith. That's it. But Patrick, what drew you to rap as a genre and as a way of expressing yourself versus a more quote unquote traditional or just different musical path?
Yeah. So growing up in high school, I listened to very little hip hop or rap music. I was very much an emo kid, probably, I guess you would say. I listened
Nice.
to a lot of prog rock, alternative rock, just screamo stuff. I still kind of listen to that stuff today. My favorite band, that's kind of the categories they would fall in. Um, and that's something that fed into my musical just blossoming, I guess. When I really started to get into music was listening to things like that. And then in college, my best friend, he has always been kind of the musical guru of our group of friends, just always listening to something new and kind of setting the trends for the way that we go there. He was listening to a lot of, this was Lil Wayne right after the kind of the Carter 3 came out. And Drake was starting to become very popular, and Kid
Mm.
Cudi was starting to become extremely popular. And I think I was just really drawn to the emotional side of like Drake and Kid Cudi, especially Cudi for the lyrics that he was talking about. And then I talked about it on Jerry's show, just being thrust into a position where everyone was freestyling and it was my turn and I just did it. And I didn't think I was very good, but I felt like I could keep the rhythm and I was just really instantly hooked. And so that's what I spent my time doing in class. Outside of class was just writing lyrics and just writing and writing. And I just really liked the rhythm of it and the fact that I didn't have to play an instrument to be able to express myself in that way. I'd always been something liked to write. I like to write poetry and short stories and things like that, fictional stuff. And just being able to use those skills that I had been developing through my formative years and then utilize them in that way was really fun. So that's kind of what drew me into the hip hop circle was not anything having grown up on it, but just
Yeah.
doing it for the first time and then feeling connected to it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I really got down with hip hop um, in my middle school years, and I don't know. I just felt like being on AOL Instant Messenger. I kind of stumbled onto like that AZN movement, and then later elementary school, I went to public school, and so there were just more people around, and hip hop was a big thing for them, for the kids of color in that area, and so I was like, okay, hip hop, I'm into this, and this is early 2000s, late 90s,
Yeah.
and then I watched Fresh Off the Boat, and that kid is like, "Yo, hip hop," and I was like, I
Yeah.
wasn't like him because I was probably like his youngest, nerdiest brother at the time, just like growing up and all of that. But I've heard other things about hip hop being big for the Asian American community, especially in that kind of late 80s, early 90s time. And I think even moving forward, as you think about the influence of hip hop on K-pop and kind of all those things. So I don't know. It's just interesting to stumble on that, and I'm always interested in like how, especially in the quote unquote early days. Nathan, you can decide whether or not this is the actual early days, but in the
Your
early
early
days of
days. My early days and your early days are completely different.
no of the internet.
Oh.
I'm not just getting at you for your age. No, I'm just saying in the early days of the internet, I don't even remember because I was so young, like how we stumbled upon things. But it was interesting for me to be like, oh, I was a part of that, and so just kind of retrospectively being like, look, I stumbled onto kind of all this culture in a way that Nathan, you probably found later, when the internet was more developed and you weren't just looking at books and Encyclopedia Britannicas.
No, my audio was through Napster. If you
There you
remember
go.
what that was. And then, of course, MySpace, and then eventually later, some of those things. But yeah. Oh, good times. Yeah, so from San Diego and from your rapping, you eventually went to Houston, also doing stuff after Hurricane Harvey. And then from there is when you really started your journey and started to consider moving or starting your own businesses, I guess, correct?
Yeah.
So tell us how that all developed at that point.
Yeah, so getting to Houston, I was just in a really big rut. I think having not finished college and being very wandery and not knowing what I wanted to do, never having made my mind up. flopping in San Diego comparatively to what I had set out to achieve there. I remember there was one day I was like on the verge of like a breakdown. Basically, I just did not know what I was doing, and I had a really good talk with one of my friends, and I went home and I was just reading an article about the relief effort. And at the end of the article is just like, we're asking people to come and volunteer, to whatever. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And I just told myself, all right, this is what I want to do. So just quit my job and just worked. Worked at the food bank and did lots of passing out food and things like that. I really wanted to work at the food bank and try to get a job there, and it just didn't work out. And so I just came back kind of to Indiana with my tail between my legs a little bit. But it was at that point I had decided, this is the and this is the line of work that I want to be in. And from there, it was just a lot of phone calls and text messages back and forth, just trying to figure out who do we help. And then my sister was like, maybe we should do something with foster care and stuff like that. And then just from there, it became older foster youth and just nailing down the specifics. And going through that journey, I came across one of my mentors when starting this. He said, if I could ever go back and do something different, it would be to fix one problem first and then move on, instead of trying to reach into every area and help as much as you could right away. So once I had that in mind, I was like, okay, we really got to focus and figure this out. So we nailed it down to communication. And then from there, it was like, okay, well, how do we fix that? And then it was cell phones. And then it was not just the device itself, but the service and keeping that on and keeping the number being the same. And so basically, like any business, it was research. And eventually we moved up to Chicago, and it was really there where I was like, we're gonna do this. It just really a matter of timing and figuring out the right place to do it. And
It's
it just
great
kind of
work that
fell
you're
into
doing.
thank you. Yeah, it just kind of fell into place from there.
And is that when did you meet your wife during that journey?
In college, we were tangentially aware of each other. Apparently, people were aware of me because I was a rapper and I did shows and stuff, and people knew me through that venue or avenue. And she had always supported me in that. She would always tweet about my stuff, and we would message back and forth on social media. And then, so it was right before I went to Houston, we had started hanging out. And then I was a little bit shy. So it took me a long time, and I felt like we were like, we both just want to be friends. I want to be more than friends, but I don't think she wants that. And so we played that game.
What we have.
Exactly. And so
what we have is so good.
It's really funny. There was a day where when I decided I was going to go to Houston, I was like, all right, I got to tell her this. And so I tell her, I'm like, hey, let's go hang out. Let's go downtown. And she's thinking he's either going to tell me we're either going to start going out or he's going to be like, we're just going to be friends. And instead I was like, hey, I'm moving to Houston. And she was like, didn't see that coming. And so we still kept up correspondence. I really, really liked her at that point. And it was just me just saying, hey, let's go out and take it to the next level. And so coming back from Houston, it was slow going, but in January, we really started to go of that year, 2017. We really started.
You say you started going steady?
Yeah, it wasn't until April we officially became going steady, but
But you were in Houston for 3 years during that time.
No,
right?
3 months.
3 months.
So
okay.
I wasn't in Houston for an exceptionally long time.
I was gonna say that was dang. That's dedication. 3 years.
We would not be probably engaged there at this point.
I think you would still be down there if it was 3 years.
I would just be coming back. Coming back now.
But so 3 months and you came back, and then that's when you guys started going out. That's great.
Yep.
And then how did you? Since we talked all about my relationship thing, how did you propose?
How did I propose?
Yeah.
So I had asked for
briefly. You don't have to go too crazy.
Sure. So we went on they have architectural boat tours in Chicago. And so we had this trip plan or this day plan for a long time, and both of our parents were coming up. And so I had already set this plan in motion, hired a photographer, had him follow us around all day while we we're on the boat tour. And then we walked to Millennium Park and where the bean is and the Buckingham Fountain is. And I proposed to her in front of that fountain.
In front of the bean. No, in front of the fountain.
In front of the fountain. That's in front of the bean. So it went really well. Had perfect weather. Couldn't have been a better day. So
nice. Did you like pose for pictures with the photographer at other points, or was the photographer just following you like a tail for hours on end until you got to the bean?
Like a tail, pretty much. There was only a short period of time where we were not being followed, but yeah,
it's low-key terrifying.
It kind of was. It was.
You
funny.
hired someone to follow
who I'd never met,
and then
in
I turned around
before.
and beat him up.
Who I'd never met in person, but it was funny. We made eye contact, and right as I saw the photographer, before we got on the boat, she was like, or Emily was like, "Who are you looking at?" And I was like, "Nobody. Oh, there's my parents."
So you'd never met the photographer?
No, I had went through about.
Did you put out an ad on Craigslist?
No,
single man looking for person to follow white female.
It's actually essentially stalker. That kind of is how it was. Except
That's
the
terrifying.
Craigslist was her friend. One
I
of
don't
want to
diss how you proposed because I'm sure it ended beautifully. But wow, that story is incredible.
Oh, I get inquiries for that. The proposal photos. It happens.
I didn't even think about it. I had it was kind of short notice too, so I was lucky to even find someone to follow us around. Not thinking of the creepiness factor of it. So,
and they showed up in a black hoodie wearing black jeans.
Yeah, I almost got
dressed
kicked out
for
of
the
Disneyland doing that because I was in the bushes taking pictures, and the guy came and told me, "It says get out of here. You can't do that." I'm like, but they're proposing right
but
now.
But they paid me.
Then they paid me already. Yeah, exactly. It was really awkward. And then I said, "Go talk to them. I got to keep taking photos." So,
yikes.
Yeah, it was an interesting.
Have you at least met all of your clients though, Nathan?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, met in person? Yes. But I haven't always been hired in person. I have been hired before through like a Zoom call or over the phone or things like that before.
All
so
right.
Yeah, so I hired over
sometimes
the phone.
I do meet them for the very first time at the actual shoot. So
standard industry practice.
I just want to summarize your story. It was you maintained correspondence with your friend. So I'm imagining you sent letters to and fro. And then you started going steady. So we've gone from the 1800s to the 1950s. And then you hired a creepy photographer to stalk your girlfriend who would then become your fiance.
Classic 80s move right there.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, that's a pretty good summary of it. Pretty good summary.
On that note, when are you getting married?
In September
when the pandemic's
of next
over.
Year. Yeah. So we had already planned it for 2021. Not knowing about this, that this was going to happen. So we didn't have
What
to
if you
push
had
back.
known about this?
Then I would. Well, I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to
be a mind reader.
Speculate.
Well, good. Well, we'll make sure to live stream it next year. So we're good.
Absolutely, we are going to do a show at our wedding. I'm sure she would love that.
Among all of those things, I guess we moved to being back in Indianapolis. You're engaged, and now you start listening to podcasts, and you start doing some discovery. Tell us how that happened.
So specifically, we had been watching Fresh Off the Boat a little bit, and then one day we were sitting there and we were looking for something to watch on Netflix, and we watched Always Be My Maybe. And I remember
show.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting there, and when he's talking to Ali Wong about how she always used to cook with her mom, and that was her thing, and then that real familial thing of it. I don't know what it was, but I just remember turning to Emily and being like, I need to learn about my Korean family and my Korean, like that just triggered something inside of me. And so I just really just started Googling things, and I know I'd been listening to podcasts. So I just went on Stitcher and typed in Asian American podcast in the search bar, and Dear Asian Americans was the first one that came up. And I said this on the show, but I will reiterate. I looked them up on Google, or looked the show up on Google, and was like, this show has not been around for very long. I'm like, is this the one that I should be listening to? I'm a big ratings guy. I'm a big ratings guy. So I was doing that. And I was just like, I'm going to listen to this. And the first episode, literally, with Jonathan Wong, changed my whole trajectory. I was like, I got to reach out to these people and figure out, how I can learn from them. And Jonathan Wong sent me that study that I talked about in Jerry's podcast, and reading that was really eye-opening for me. Reading about ethnic self-discovery and reading from the perspective of other Korean adoptees who grew up in predominantly white neighborhoods and with white families, and how they just literally said words that I had said or talked about things that I had dealt with in my hometown. And I was like, a piece of me that had been missing for a long time just filled back up, a little bit of that. And so from there, it was the floodgates had opened. I was reaching out to people. Jerry, he put me in touch with a lot of people. I reached out to the first Asian American Studies professor at IUPUI here, and she reached back out. Everyone could not have been more accepting of what I was trying to do and the questions that I was asking, and more helpful on just moving me along on this journey. It's been a lot, just doing a lot of different things, reading books, and then, talking with you guys, starting this, working with the Guide Foundation on their CAD Town Square project, which is something that's really ambitious and really cool to be a part of. But
Yeah, I can't
really,
wait till
it's
that
just been
launches.
about, yeah, it's pretty exciting. But really, it's just been about the community, because we are really, Korean adoptees specifically are really unique, not just in the U.S. but in the world. And hearing these stories, both good, like in our cases, or not so great, like in a large majority of Korean adoptees in America specifically. So finding a community in a way that I had never found it before, has really been, it's crazy to think that I found that in 2 months, so, which is how long that I've been kind of doing this for. So yeah.
Yeah. When you were reaching out to all those people, I know you said you had a lot of questions. What was, I guess, like the foremost question in your mind? What answer were you looking for?
So the foremost question in my mind was, where do I start? Because I honestly at 30 have no idea where to even begin. And today, in the day of the internet, there's so much information, it's almost overwhelming. And I wasn't a great student. I have no problem just reading stuff, and especially if I have a mind for it, or I'm single-minded in my pursuit of something, I have no problem studying it. But just looking and really starting to dig in and do research, there was just so many things. So I'm finding blog posts about success stories for finding your family, for your birth family, finding
Mm.
stories of failure in those situations. Um just just so many, even in our community, so many different things that I was just really, every time that I spoke with someone, it was, I don't know anything and I want to know as much as I possibly can. So
Do you mean about like being Korean or being adopted from Korea specifically?
specifically about Korean culture, I guess, but then also the Korean American side of that. So how, like it for Jerry Show specifically, how it's that hyphen American, and learning about how Asian American people, survived in this country and came up in this country. I have a very tangential knowledge of these things, certain things that have happened throughout the history of this country, but um, I never sought that out. So wanting to know specifically, not just more about Korean culture, but how, even in general, as Asian Americans, that's that specific culture. So where do I start here, and finding out about that?
And there's
Gotcha.
a lot of different stories too. That I mean, just from the reading that I've done with any adoptees around the internet, it's just so many different stories of where they are, what they found, what experiences they went through.
Yeah.
It's I mean, that's I guess our hope for this show, right? Is to hear more of these stories, and so shortly after this, you decided to search for your biological family, and you contacted Holt.
So I was adopted through Bethany Christian
Oh,
Services.
Bethany.
So I've reached
Okay.
out to them,
Yeah, Holt is me.
and
Oh, that's right.
I am
and
Holt.
they've I am Bethany. Um, so I reached out to them. I've started that process. I've just been, now I'm in the mode of collecting documents, things that they want to have, and then getting the fees and stuff lined up.
Mhm.
So I'm slowly doing that. I'm thinking about doing some of the DNA tests and stuff too, just to see what I can find through that, and then going from there. But I'm very much in the infancy of that
Mhm.
specific part of my journey.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, for me, it took me 8 months to get everything together before I finally submitted everything. And then from there, it was only 2 months before I heard something. So, once you submit something, we'll see. I'm excited to hear what follow up you have.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
What are the things about I guess, this new venture with the Guide and CAD Town Square? What are the reasons that you've gotten into helping them with their projects?
Sure. So actually, I can thank Jerry for that in a roundabout way. When I was first connecting with Jonathan Wong, he had reached out to Jerry and showed him my email, and Jerry had responded with an article about the Guide Foundation and specifically what they're doing because they're extremely new. I think they're only I think they're 4 months into it being an
Mhm.
But
organization.
did you have the same hesitancy and be like, where's the social proof? Or are you like,
A
nah, I'm
little
all in?
bit, a little
Really?
bit. But then when I read about the mission, I really commit because it's about Korean adoptee suicide and mental wellness and mental well being, and really diving into that and trying to address that. And I really appreciated that mission specifically because those were things that I had never thought about or dealt with before, and I felt like that was something I wanted to know more about as well. So I just, like I had been doing, just found the email on the website and just sent them an email and just said, "Hey, I want to, outside of monetarily supporting this organization, what else can I do to help?" And
Mhm.
they reached back out to me, and 2 conversations later, I was deeply entrenched in trying to help them start to build this out. And it's been a wild, I can honestly say it's been a wild ride, meeting not only a bunch of new people, but just trying to help them with this extremely ambitious project take form and take shape. And it's been really amazing to see our diverse community come out and want to put in the work and do these certain things. So um it's gonna be interesting here in the next couple of months as this starts to come together fully.
Yeah, they're launching November 1st, you said?
November 1st. Yeah, I think we're going
Yeah.
to be doing a phased rollout. So what Cat Town Square is, just as a little bit of overview, is it's going to be a one place where we gather resources, information, and knowledge about Korean adoptees, their experiences, and the advocate and allies that go along with it, and so adoptive family members, parents, things like that. And it's going to put everything in one place and make it somewhere where anybody, even non adoptees, can come and learn about this specific topic, the wide variety of topics that fall under this one great umbrella, and they can do that at their own pace, and to their heart's content or their desire. It's unique in the fact that it's gathering as much as possible to put into one place and make it very easily accessible. Not that you couldn't hop on Facebook and try and find that, but there are so many groups. And at
Yeah.
some point, it becomes not so much that we can't all have our own group of things that we're doing, but it becomes that we're now dividing things in it's one topic into multiple that doesn't need to be multiple topics. So
Mhm.
we're trying to consolidate all of that and put that in a place where anybody can go find it, and you maybe not have to worry about going into a comment section and asking a question that you don't feel comfortable about and not getting a good response.
Yeah.
So that's really the impetus for what CAD Town Square is.
And Facebook's gets lost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just reminded of the episode. I've been rewatching Legend of Korra on Avatar or on Netflix, and just reminded of the episode where all of the humans live in different lion turtles' backs, and then they're like, "There's other humans out there," and they're like, "What? I didn't know that. I thought they were only spirits." And yeah, so I really appreciate what the Guy Foundation and the heart about the Cad Town Square is, because I'm like, when I stumbled into this, I was like, what? There's other Korean American adoptees that do like lots of other things and have all these other stories. I was just like, wasn't even aware that a table was being built or that breakfast areas, nooks and crannies had already been erected. So it's just nice to go. And the internet, yeah, it's so huge. You're just like, is
Mhm.
there a travel guide who can help me navigate this? So I appreciate that journey a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any other things that people haven't, found that or not, or any information on it. Check it out on Facebook. There's definitely some groups that people can join and help out and volunteer because I know you
Yeah.
guys have a big community already. So,
Yeah,
um,
I
I've
would
even
probably get
they've
yelled
even
at.
reached out. Yeah,
I'll probably get yelled at if I don't say, if you are a Korean adoptee, do come and volunteer for us because we can use you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. I just volunteered some photos yesterday, actually.
oh, nice, awesome, thank you.
So on top of all this journey and everything, what do you think the future holds for you, and what have you been learning about all of this in general?
I think the future for me specifically on this journey is just to continue learning, and hopefully. So one of the principles of what CAD Town Square is, and kind of like a little vision or mission statement, would be to be the bridge between these disparate groups of Korean adoptees, not just in the U.S. but across the world. And I think that, especially with this show and Jerry's show, and then what we're doing over there, I think what I've really come to understand that I would like my role to be is to be one of those bridges, and to help connect and spread awareness, and just sharing those stories just as widely and as far as we can share them. I think is really something that I think when I talk about finding my true calling and doing the nonprofit work and stuff like that, I think it all has been kind of building into this, and I do truly feel at this point in time that in the future it's going to be about being one of those bridges, and continuing to help share the love and spread the good word. I guess I
Hmm.
could say.
Definitely. Yeah, you never know what things will inspire other people down the road, just as the little things that in the past that you discovered inspired you to do things. That's the one of the things. It won't inspire anyone if you don't speak up or say anything. So
Exactly.
I think, yeah, I think that's one of the things I love about this show and that what we're doing here. So, do you have anything, KJ, to add to that?
Yeah. So like for me, my wife and I, especially just because we've been together for so long, we've had a lot of talks about being adopted, and she's gotten the opportunity to hang out with my family. And I mean, I've even brought up things, but like, oh, I bet when we hang out in restaurants, it looks like I'm the one who's hanging out with your family, not vice versa. Um, but what, just because this is all so new to you, and like you said, you're only at this point like 2 months or 6 seconds, as you like to say, into your journey of exploring your Korean American identity and your adopted identity. What what's this done with your relationship with your now fiance, and how has this changed you, or introduced new questions, or things like that?
I think that it's been really, trying to find the right word. So she's always extremely supportive, and I think that's only reinforced that,
Mm,
especially because this is something that's so close to um, just me personally. It really is something, and it's something that I have never explored before. And
yeah.
so, not that I don't think that, or not that I would say that she feels forced into it, but I think that she wants me. She's really what my number one cheerleader, my coach, and going after and pursuing this. Um, and that way, the only thing that I think that's changed is I think it's just strengthened our bond, because for a lot of people, that are adopted, you're wanting to learn about your family history, your bio family history, because of health reasons and things like that. And I think that was one of my impetuses as well for doing that, was just so we have an awareness of what could be coming for our potential, or for our children in the future. And so for me personally, I've always struggled with fully following through on things,
Mm,
and making sure that I finished what I started. And I think for me personally, and my whole life, what this has really changed in a good way has been, and even though it is 2 months, so it's almost too short a time to tell, but I feel the conviction to follow through on this, and to make sure that I see it through to the end, good, bad, whatever the outcome may be. I think that it's really reinforced that for myself personally, and in our relationship, both my fiance and I's relationship overall. it has then now amplified that feeling of wanting to see it through, because it's not even really about me personally almost at that point. It's about us, and it's about our future as well. So it plays
Yeah.
into that. So I think that's how that's affected us, I think.
Yeah, I get that.
Mhm.
And then one question that I had while you were talking about starting your journey, arguably later in life certainly than Nathan or I did, and just feeling like maybe grasping for straws and asking just anyone and everyone, like, where do I start? What was the best piece of advice or like the best place to start that you were like, okay, I'm going to do this now, and that you found was the most helpful? If someone else who's listening to this is like, yeah, I get that. Maybe I should start thinking about this. Where should people start?
Um, so this might seem a little bit harsh, but the best piece of advice that I got was that I actually don't really know anything. And so coming into this journey, not assuming anything that I know anything about the community has actually been really helpful, because as I said before, I wasn't a great student, but coming at it, it's because, I felt like I knew stuff already that I was
Hmm.
being taught. And now, having another Korean adoptee tell me that, as they work to help me understand and learn more, I think that was the best piece of advice I've gotten overall completely, just because, I can come at it with my own prejudices, biases, thoughts, formed already, assumptions, and to be able to tell myself that I don't know any of this, and so I need to come in with fresh eyes and with a willingness to learn. It's really helped me be able to be like, to sit and be a little bit more understanding, reach just a little bit farther across the line to try and connect, where I never did that. I would run away from the line when I was younger, when I was in college, when I had opportunities to connect, because I thought I knew. I thought I knew this, and just approaching it from that almost infant mindset has been extremely helpful. And I'd say, if you're ever going to go into a journey like this, don't assume that you know what's going to happen, because you probably won't. I never would have thought I'd be doing a podcast and a show like this. Not that that's specifically about the journey, but that's where the journey has led me.
Yeah.
And it's another stop on the way to enlightenment, I suppose I should say, about not only Korean culture, but the Korean American experience and the Asian American experience overall.
Yeah. So it sounds like the best piece of advice was to be ready to learn and unlearn at the same
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Be open and do your own research.
Yeah, but be willing
Yeah.
to take it all in. Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, in the spirit of learning, I think it's time to try a new snack, right?
I love snacks.
Yes.
I bought two. Well, okay, I won't jump ahead, but
Snacks are good. Korean snacks.
I'm excited for it. What are we eating today?
So today we are eating shrimp chips.
Specifically Nongshim shrimp crackers.
Nongshim shrimp chips. These supposedly are one of the top 3 nostalgic best favorite snacks in Korea. Correct?
I'm nostalgic
Spicy.
for them, and
You're nostalgic.
not-
So you have had
Yeah.
them many times.
yes,
Patrick, have you had them?
I have not. Like I said, I'm
Oh.
coming in hot and fresh. On all
I
of
am
it.
also a newbie in this
Yes.
realm too. I have
Okay.
never had these.
I
And
don't have the
actually-
spicy bag. You have the spicy bags,
Yeah.
but I don't. So let's start with the not spicy ones.
Okay.
So we can
All
do it
right.
at the same time.
I also used to hate shrimp too, just to forewarn you. So
Perfect.
I have a question.
would
Do we
pick-
have to remove the tails before we eat these
No,
chips?
ready?
Oh.
Okay, just open it. Here we go.
Okay. Nongshim.
I can't even get this open. Are you kidding me? Oh, I got it.
I might have to get scissors.
Woo! Shrimpy.
Yeah. Oh
they
my
exploded.
goodness, that is shrimpy smell.
Yeah,
Wow.
I told you it's an immediate. What's that smell?
It's immediate shrimp. I wish this was smell-o-vision, because I am smelling shrimp. But since I did not like shrimp, I have now come to love shrimp. So
Yo, my cat's gonna go nuts.
This tastes nothing like the smell. I'm gonna
No.
eat all
Okay.
these in 10 seconds.
it does not.
I
It
can
tastes
already
like a
tell you that.
chip. With a very slight hint of shrimp. Very slight.
So, I told my coworkers that I was doing this,
Hmm.
and they said, "What is it like?" And I said, "It's like shrimp flavored veggie chips. If you've ever had those."
Yeah.
Just
Oh
in
yeah,
terms of like
it is like a veggie chip.
texture and
Yeah. It's a lot lighter than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be shrimpy. I mean, it's mildly shrimpy. It's pungent shrimpy though. Like you can definitely smell the shrimp, but you can't really taste the shrimp. So if you don't like shrimp flavor, which I don't think you would notice.
So here's the deal. I would bring these to summer camp, and I would open them on the bus, or I'd do them. So my youth group did like choir tours or whatever, and I'd open them on the bus, and everybody would immediately have the same reaction, like, "Oh, what's that smell?" Whatever. And I was like, I feel so Asian. This is incredible.
You're that guy stinking up the bus.
But by the end of whatever we were doing, the first time I brought it, everyone was like, "Yo, can I have some of those?" And so next year, I brought them again, and again, what's that smell? Oh wait, I remember this smell. Can I have some? And then by the third year, they're like, "You brought those shrimp crackers, right?" And I was like, "Oh, you know it." Like I became famous for bringing them, and all of my white friends loved them.
Wow.
It was really fantastic. So even though they're all like, "Ugh, what is it?" They were like, I converted them. It was so good.
Maybe it's the anchovy extract powder,
Oh,
even
why
the
you gotta say
mushroom
that?
extract.
Oh, okay, I'm back in.
It's kind of interesting. It would not have guessed cream. Did you know that? So it's got cream in there, lactose.
Isn't there
So
like
I
a
hope
thing
neither
in-
of you are lactose intolerant.
Aren't we all
not
a little
anyway.
bit lactose intolerant?
So they say. I don't know.
That's
I,
what Fresh Off the Boat told me, and I have no
forced
reason to argue
through
with
it.
them.
I never had any issues in my my younger days. So
I got over. I did when I was a baby. So my parents didn't realize, or once they realized that, they didn't know what to do. So they kept feeding me just juices and things that were terrible. Rotted
Yeah.
my front 4 teeth.
wow.
Had to have them pulled when I was like 4, and
Whoa.
grew up without my front 4s on top, until I was like in 4th grade when my adult teeth came in. So that was super fun. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for putting me through that at a young age.
Wow. That's pretty
All right.
crazy.
So, Patrick, you're into social proof. Give me a rating out of 5.
Out of 5, I'm gonna give it 5 shrimps because I could eat all of these in about 20 minutes. I'm gonna eat the rest of these tonight. I'm giving it 5 shrimps.
We're recording this at dinner time for me, so I'm like very hungry.
I know.
I might finish this.
I am too.
They definitely are like the veggie chips, like you were saying, with a little bit of the hint of seafood, I guess. But
Nathan, what's your rating? How many shrimpies out of 5?
I would give 4 out of 5 shrimps.
4 out of
4
5
out of
shrimps.
5,
Why
and
not
I'm
5?
because of the smell. If
Okay.
it wasn't as pungent when you first opened it, that's what got me. Because I'm a
Right.
very sensory person. So if it's gonna smell like that, I want it to taste like that too. But if it doesn't taste, if it's a mild taste like it is, I don't think it should smell like that.
So you feel like it's a little dishonest.
Yes, because it might sway me from eating them at the beginning when I opened it. But once I started eating them, I'm like, oh, these are great. They're really tasty, crunchy, and they're not too strong. So, I either want the smell and the flavor to match. Well, I don't know. But 4 out of 5 is still pretty good. I mean, I eat chips, but and I also I knock it 1 star just a little bit because I would like it to be a little saltier.
You like
Really?
salt. You like salt, don't you?
I'm hoping that the spicy version is a little saltier, and I don't know. I know. I mean, what's the salt content on this even? Is it high? I mean, compared to like American snacks?
I don't know, man.
7%.
Yeah, 7%.
17% in the whole
I think that's
bag.
pretty low for sodium on chip
I feel like-
standards.
I'm eating this and I'm literally tasting the ocean. So I don't know. I couldn't imagine how you want it to be.
I can't
like,
even
it's not
smell
that
the
salty.
shrimp anymore.
It's not that salty, but I feel like I'm tasting the ocean. So,
I-
and that's
I
like
always-
that's a good memory for me. If that's not your thing, it's not your thing.
I
I'm gonna
always
give it.
quote-
I'm gonna give it 4.5 out of 5 shrimpies
Okay.
because it was too hard for me with this business to get it open, and I feel like if you want a chip to be snackable, you shouldn't need a tool to have to open it. That tool including my teeth. You saw it explode all over the place.
Oh, I
That's a
agree.
good point.
That's
I kind
what
of
I'm
want to
saying.
amend my rating and do
I give it-
4.75.
The packaging.
Yeah, I was
has
gonna say.
demoted
Actually,
it.
I love it so much. Yeah, I give it 4.75.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or the
Nongshim,
percentages.
make this
Okay.
easier to open. and you
Easier
get a
to open.
5.
However, it does say right at the top, it says open here. So it does
No, it
give
does
you.
not.
Oh,
On
it
mine,
does.
it does.
Oh, it does. All right, I'm blind. You're back to 5. You're good. I'm
My bad, Nongshim.
Neither
Yep.
of you opened it where it says
Yep.
open here. I did.
Sorry. All
I
right.
read it.
Yo, dig into the spicy ones. I'm gonna.
But
Okay.
who opens a bag of
Eat
chips like that?
vicariously
I'm
through
keeping
you.
it 4.75. Who doesn't open a bag of chips the way we opened it? That's the. Well, that's in my American coming out. So, my bad.
But yes,
all right, Nongshim, back to 5.
I like salt, and I will quote The Simpsons where she's talking about her secret recipe, and she goes, "The secret ingredient is salt," because it's so
That
true.
was a really good
Sometimes-
impression.
No, thank you. Oh, okay. This open here, I take that back. I'm almost gonna demote it again. This open here part is not opening now.
Nathan, I feel lied to, man.
I'm feeling like it's like a trap.
These are
I'm
so
gonna
good.
end up like you, and these are gonna go everywhere.
Just make sure you do it on camera.
This is why I've been eating like this. Don't really have the space.
With a pen, going for the jab.
Jab it. Alrighty. Shrimp spicy. Not as pungent.
Interesting.
Does it have a spice
Not-
smell?
The flavor or the smell is
Patrick,
not
have you
like
opened yours?
the other
I'm
one.
gonna open it now.
I would say that this is a pleasant smell.
Mine opened
Hey,
right
yours
up.
worked.
So,
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, must
So
be
get
salty.
your crap together,
Just-
Nongshim.
Smell it. See? This one is supposed to be spicy, but it doesn't really look. It's got a. I can feel that there's more flavor to this one.
This one doesn't even have a smell.
Yeah, it's very, very mild. I know. And it's also mild in flavor. I would say there's a little bit of spice to it, but not too much.
It's just a hint. It's just a hint. That's what, I don't know how to describe
All
a
right,
hint
so if you
of
come
something,
from
but
a
that's what it is.
soft Midwestern upbringing, and you're
This-
not that used to spice. Spicy is still okay,
Yep.
and it's down on the smell.
I would give this one a 4.75. Yes, because I definitely like this better. It's the spice part is definitely coming up in the end a little more, but I would not say. I would definitely say these are better.
It doesn't
Yeah,
hit
I
you
like
like a
these ones
flaming
better, I
hot
think.
Cheeto.
Right? No, Flaming Hot Cheetos are amazing. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Those-
flaming
those
hot.
can-
Pretty much flaming hot Doritos. That's my favorite flaming hot.
Those
one.
can
I
hurt
don't
you.
even know though. I like too many. I'm addicted to
Yep.
chips. I'm actually just today said I'm not going to eat any more chips for like a month.
After this episode.
So thanks, guys.
And maybe the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
Nice.
I prefer the spicy flavor Nongshim. Good job. That's pretty tasty.
Good job.
I will eat the
Nongshim.
rest of that bag easily because I know my
So-
kids will not.
I don't even know if there are any competitors out there, but our recommendation is Nongshim shrimp crackers.
Yeah.
They are like the OG shrimp crackers.
Mm.
Convert your white friends. Convert yourself if you haven't ever had them.
Yeah.
You didn't find these at Target, did you, Patrick?
No, this was at an actual Asian market.
All right, so
Yeah.
you might have to go adventure a little bit. You can't just go to your local Target. But
However, they were purchasable on Amazon, so you can get them there.
Also
all else
purchasable
fails.
at
So, yeah.
some Targets that I saw on the internet.
But if you like spice, go a little bit with the spicy one. That's good. Oh
so
yeah.
there you go. Boom.
Perfect.
Nongshim
Good stuff.
shrimp crackers.
Oh yeah.
Thanks for the mems.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our interview with Patrick. Hope that you enjoyed it just as much as we did. It was a good time. Patrick, where can people find you, find your nonprofit, maybe listen to your rap music, all that stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Patrick in the World. And then you can listen to my music at SoundCloud / Patrick Isn't Real. You can find our nonprofit at All Times Are Local across all channels, social media channels, except for Twitter, where it is All Times, the letter R, and then local. Thank you, Jack Dorsey, for that. As far as our show goes, you can find us on all social platforms as well at Janchi Show. And we hope to see you guys soon. We're gonna be connecting, doing a lot of things to engage with everybody that listens, and just want to say thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. Thanks for all that information, Patrick. It was great.
So give us a follow. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. You can find me at KJ Relke, ROELKE. Nathan?
You can find me at Nowak Photo, NOWACK Photo.
Love being adopted by white people with hard
Nowak
last names.
Yeah, I know. Nowak, but we actually pronounce it Nowak. So
That's good to know because I definitely
know.
would have gotten that wrong.
a lot of people do. That's okay.
You can find out more about the Guide Foundation, Patrick, by searching a thing in the Google.
Yeah, you can find out more about the Guide Foundation and the CAD Town Square project by just searching Guide Foundation on Google. You can also find them at the Guide Foundation across all social handles as well. And then specifically, the CAD Town Square project is at CAD Town Square across all of those social media channels.
And that's Guide, GIDE.
That is correct.
Yes, there is no U.
Yep.
U is missing.
And we want to see
but not
you.
for long.
Oh, dang it. I messed it up. That was a lot better.
All right. So thanks for listening. We will see you next week.
Bye.